All right, welcome back to Beyond Motion. Here, as always, with my co-host Lindsay.
Hello.
I'm Zach, and today's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of a fun weekend that we just had, which is our annual user group meeting.
That's right.
So yeah, we're gonna just kind of review everything from the weekend, what went on, what we learned, maybe some behind the scenes moments, and just really discuss kind of what makes this event so fun and unique.
I'm excited. I love looking forward to the user meeting every year, and so I think just taking some time to recap, chat amongst ourselves, hopefully just gives us some way to relive some of those cool moments as well as just demonstrate to anyone who might not have heard or been to the user meeting how special of an event it really is.
Yeah, and it's always so much fun. I mean, it's something that we put a lot of sweat into,
Oh, that's right.
for a good portion of the year, and a lot of that kind of comes all together right at the end, and we have to, take about 2 weeks of really heavy prep to get everything going. And it seems like it's one of these things where you're stressed about it, and then it's happening, and you're just having a great time, and everything goes smoothly, and
Yeah,
it's such a nice weekend.
for sure.
But
Well,
yeah, I mean, we've obviously gotten some feedback over the years, but I'm just curious from your perspective, what do you think makes our user meeting so unique compared to like a more traditional conference?
I would say something that not a lot of people realize is that it's really not like a traditional conference at all.
Hmm.
A lot of conferences are big, they're very impersonal, and many times there are breakout groups where you can get with people that are more closely aligned to what you might be studying or researching, for instance. But our group is typically pretty small, and it's consists of these more intimate workshops and allows for a lot of networking within just our community, people that use our technology. So everyone has that in common and can share ideas. And I think it's just really special seeing people walk in who maybe not had not been expecting that and get to introduce themselves to other users. And I mean, you and I have been on the product training and education side for a long time. It's really nice to see those people sharing ideas amongst each other rather than coming to us and being like, okay, cool, I bought this product. Like, I need some
Yeah, how
ideas.
do I use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that community aspect is huge, and I think probably the primary reason that we have this in the first place is
Hmm.
wanting to establish that connection between all of our different users and foster collaboration and this idea exchange. Even though it might occur just in the weekend, but you hope that it also creates more of these like lasting relationships, especially for some of the users that kind of come year in and year out,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, we've
we've
got a
got
lot
to.
of repeat customers in
Yeah,
that case.
we got a good core that's pretty consistent with their attendance, and then a decent group that sort of revolves around that, based off of whatever the topics are and things like
Hmm.
that. Um, yeah, it's been interesting too. I mean, this is I think it's our eighth year now of doing it in this format. So we've been
Yeah.
doing it for a while. And for the most part, I would say that a lot of it has kind of stayed the same in terms of like kind of the structure of what we do.
Yeah, I would say
Having
so.
some speakers, have them do their keynote presentations, have them run labs, implement some technical training in there as well from ourselves, talk to the customers or our users about what's coming next and kind of get them excited about some developments. So a lot of that stayed pretty much the same, I guess. Obviously topics and things have changed. But is
Yeah.
there anything that you've picked up on that you feel like's evolved over the years, as we've just gotten better at hosting this event?
Oh man. We've been pretty consistent about the structure. I would say making sure that we opt for two technical workshops at least has made a big difference because I think there was one year where maybe we only had one technical workshop and the rest were either lectures
Right.
or workshops with users, which the workshops with users always go over very well. But as you're aware, because of all the vast applications available with the technology that we produce, it's super hit or miss whether that resonates with whoever attended that year. So I think the main thing that I learned this year that I thought was really interesting was from David Montgomery's presentation, where he focused on a unique application, but spent time really dialing in on what his process is to both capture that data and also analyze it. And I think what resonated well with a lot of other users is that it made it feel really accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, hey, this is super easy. I do it right in front of every patient that comes in. And, maybe something that is very simple to do in the software, but, along the lines of you don't know what you don't know until someone tells you that's a possibility.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a great showcase of, there's a little bit of effort that you have to put in on the front end
Hmm.
to kind of craft your protocol. Obviously, in his case, kind of really pay attention to the setup and
Yeah.
things like that. Do the report design, but then once you sort of overcome that, then it just becomes this rinse and repeat type of thing,
Hmm.
and you get better and better and better at it each time. And so I agree. I felt like that was really neat to be able to see, have him show that to some users who might have thought that something like that, doing something that's very customized, would be a little bit daunting.
Yeah.
But he did a great job of showcasing how, it's really not that bad. Once you just put that initial effort in and kind of get over that first learning curve.
Yeah.
Um,
Something that's we tell people all the time, new users of the equipment, old users of the equipment,
mhm.
but just seeing it in action from someone who's out there using the technology with patients, I think was really important for a lot of people to sort of grasp that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think he got a lot of engagement too. I think, so for our listeners who obviously weren't there, or many of who weren't there, he had a focus on performing bike fits with the markerless system. And so I think that was cool just to be able to see how user that resonated with users in terms of maybe they didn't even think that the system could be used that way, right? Like we've obviously shown a lot of examples of using the tracking for walking or
Yeah.
running on a treadmill, or maybe some, isolated movements like squats or something like that.
Hmm.
And so he kind of came out the gates with this unique application that is, you know, useful across the board for a lot of people that are in physical therapy and, working with endurance athletes, and showed how, he can take this same system and have somebody do the running analysis on the treadmill. And then, inside 15 minutes can have it completely flipped around and ready for them to do this, bike fit analysis. and
Yeah.
and throughout his entire process, do this comprehensive assessment on somebody's movement patterns, and really deliver like a meaningful service for his patients and his clients that he's working with. So I thought that was
Definitely.
really neat to just be able to see how his how much attention he takes into the setup, and then how much he's able to get from this tool set that wasn't necessarily designed with that application in mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. I think something that will be important for us to remember as we continue to plan future events is sometimes really the simpler the better in a lot of ways. Because really, with David's keynote, he focused on just two key points of interest with this bike fit analysis and really honed in on both that setup process and that analysis process.
Hmm.
And so I think there's an element of because with the technology that we have, there's so much information that's available. It's so easy to get lost in the details.
Yeah.
And just having someone say, like, hey, you know what? I don't really care about any of those other things except for this, this, and this. I think that was really important for users to see and sort of takes you back to the importance of using technology in the first place. Like it's not necessarily what is best to throw spaghetti at the wall and just try to see what you find.
Yeah.
Like if you really dial in on just a few things, you could really learn some really interesting insights.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the repetitive nature of that is also helpful. And if you have
Hmm.
too many things that you're trying to look at all the time over and over and over again, you kind of start to make up stories.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, and of course, I mean, we had our other two speakers were fantastic as well,
Hmm.
with Guillaume Simoneau and Chris Hughes.
Yep.
Both, I think we had a great spectrum of lectures where Guillaume really came at it from kind of a pure biomechanics standpoint, and he's working very heavily with the athletes. His particular focus in this case was on hockey players, but
Hmm.
he's looking at other swing sports and other sports in general and kind of
Yeah.
sport specific movements and
Right. In sports performance rather
correct.
than something
And
like rehab.
right. Yeah. And then, Chris, bringing his expertise as a professor in physical therapy school and a clinician, and, sharing his sort of philosophy on, the gaps that we have from the progression through rehabilitation
Yeah.
and how the equipment can kind of help facilitate that middle portion of the progression where there isn't actually a lot of information or the patients aren't being paid attention to as much,
Hmm.
but it's kind of a crucial point where if you can find an issue during that portion,
Yeah.
then you can attack it before it becomes, a problem later on in the progression and hopefully, eliminate this or mitigate the risk of re-injury.
Yeah. And
So,
something I love about Chris and the way he communicates, and especially because he is a professor, like he
hmm
teaches all the time, is he's pretty careful to not really dial down on like, you know what, this is the thing I do. It is the most important thing. He's pretty casual about it. He's like, yeah, I collect all this data and, it takes, really looking at it to decide whether it's really useful. And I just want to help people. So, I definitely have some things I look at, but I'm not creating these highly specific reports every time. I'm just looking at the big picture.
yeah.
So I think that approach, is far different than like David's approach, for instance, where he has this detailed report at the end. Is it's kind of nice to be able to present differing, workflow capacities within the software and with the technology, just again to broadcast ideas like, hey, you can use this equipment in many different ways and utilize the information in many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting that Chris brought up and he talked about was how, and it sort of is how his whole entire measurement process comes about also, is that he even said, he's like, it's a little, it might be backwards compared to some other people, but he's like, I do sort of like the table assessments first.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets kind of an evaluation of the person's capacity for movement. And then if he identifies, issues in that assessment, he kind of has it in his mind as far as like where the problems are going to present when
Mm-hmm.
he does the analysis portion, when he moves to more dynamic or functional movements
Yeah.
with the equipment. And I thought that was really interesting because he kind of is starting to form his hypothesis using kind of the standard approach that a physical therapist might use with more of a hands type of an assessment where they're testing strength and they're
Yeah.
looking at range of motion and trying to identify these movement patterns in isolation, and then and so he kind of takes that into his brain and then says, okay, jump off the table, like let's strap you up, we're going to have you do a walking assessment or squats or jump or whatever it is that he has them do, even sports specific stuff. But he kind of has an idea of like, okay, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a problem here, here, and here,
Yeah.
and then he uses the assessment, with the equipment to kind of verify that and maybe find other leakages or things. And then, of course, goes down his process of defining what the treatment should be and then retesting, whenever it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really interesting approach and something that probably resonated with a lot of the clinicians there as well,
For
whether they do
sure.
that or maybe they go the opposite, but it kind of gave them a perspective of like, maybe I could switch it up, depending on the type of patient that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think it demonstrates, the other aspect of how you can utilize the methods that you're very familiar with as a physical therapist to
Hmm.
develop that hypothesis. And it doesn't have to feel scary to use technology to help derive your opinions and thoughts on what to do next with that patient, because you don't have to second guess yourself. You're doctor of physical therapy for a reason, or clinician, whatever, for a reason. But you can utilize it at first to just kind of explore and be like, okay, this is what I saw in my manual assessment. Can I use the technology to confirm that hypothesis? And if I'm seeing opposite findings, like how does that challenge you as, a clinician?
Hmm.
So I think that perspective is definitely pretty interesting, and one that I hope a lot of our users who are there who are clinicians as well resonated with.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then, you kind of get the other side of the spectrum with Guillaume and what he was doing, and kind of this uh, performance-based assessment. Not really looking at treating injuries or anything like that, but taking athletes that are at certain levels and trying to help them get to that next level.
Hmm.
Um, and that's all from the basis of trying to be able to optimize mechanics, pick the right equipment, and using data to sort of drive all of these decisions for the athlete themselves. So I thought that was super fascinating. He presented some really cool data on, like, shot selection in hockey for a
Hmm.
certain positional player, and the type of what hand they are. And the one thing that was interesting, I had no clue about, was the hockey sticks in general, and kind of the technology that goes into the hockey sticks, and like
Yeah.
the certain flex points that they've got and how they're engineered, and which ones are meant for which positions,
Yeah.
and the current state of how a hockey stick is chosen for an athlete, and how the company that he works for, they're trying to make that a much more data driven, informed decision, not only for just choosing the right stick, but then what does that mean for this athlete as they kind of continue their career in this sport, and hopefully get to the highest level that they're searching for.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting when our users bring in other aspects of what their overall process is that
Hmm.
aren't just our technology into it, because I think it just helps you to, I don't know, to not know that to know that there are other aspects that are important
Right.
too, and it's not just technology focused. Like
Right.
it could be the manual assessment with the technology, with the specific tool that you're using. And,
Hmm.
biomechanics is this whole puzzle, right?
Yeah, and even like the movement analysis piece of it is just
Yeah.
one portion that is important, but there's the entire system is serviced by so many other pieces, right? And he even mentioned that as well, as far as other pieces of data that they're taking in, especially for
Yeah.
their top athletes, where they're looking at sleep and activity and nutrition, and other pieces to kind of the total health of the athlete, and then using the movement analysis piece as what's going to happen actually on the ice,
Yeah.
and kind of how do they drive training to deliver the best performance there, but then in their overall assessments and kind of how they're tracking these athletes, there's a lot more to it for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
And yeah, it's always super interesting to see people kind of using that in practice, and um, definitely reminds you that, like, there's so much more to this system that is the human body than is
Yeah.
just how you're moving.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of how busy of an event it feels like for those of us that are involved with hosting it,
Hmm.
like I do really enjoy seeing all those different perspectives and hearing the conversations between the users of our technology that, highlight just how different everyone's perspective can be, but, everyone's working towards the same goal. So,
Yeah.
It's heartwarming in a way.
So I guess is that something you would say like what happened? Is that something that would reminded you kind of why we do this event in the first place?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I think that collaboration with other users and that networking opportunity that we provide with our social events is really important to a lot of our users who attend the event.
Hmm.
Um, and again, just highlighting that intimate nature of it. Like there's no big conference that you can attend where you can really get the same sort of feel with the same small group of people using all of the same stuff for their purposes. But that's always my favorite part is just hearing people interact, like listening in on those conversations. And it really drives home why we do what we do as well.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I mean, we talk about this often, but our primary focus on the product development side is like user experience
Yeah.
and, wanting them to love and enjoy using our software, using our hardware, and so getting the chance to kind of get that direct feedback or from these people, over the course of a weekend is always really special and definitely something that, I look forward to regardless of how difficult the lead up can be,
Yeah.
as we get there. Um, so how do you think everybody responded to kind of like the hands-on demos? We talked a little bit about the speakers, but you also hosted your own lab. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it because
I
I was down
know.
there supporting the other one, but
This always
um,
happens to us, man.
but I'm just curious, yeah, how did it go?
It went really well. So I think so my demo, just so everyone is aware, or workshop rather, highlighted mostly a feature of the MR software that allows you to build protocols that consist of multiple activities or segments. So, for instance, thinking like a well-known balance test, like the best test, you have that portion of it where your eyes are closed and you record eyes closed standing on a firm surface for 20 seconds. Then you move to that next activity and you're with your eyes open on a firm surface for 20 seconds. And that same protocol development can relate to many different recording types in the software,
Sure.
whether it's single leg jump analysis, you could do the left side, then the right side, anything where you're performing steps, I suppose.
Hmm.
So it primarily focused on building that type of workflow and the custom reporting that goes with it. But I highlighted different pieces of technology so that users with our IMU system or with force plates could connect those dots and see what that looks like to be able to modify existing protocols that might be built into the software for their needs.
Cool.
Um, so I think it went really well because there was a lot of conversation that was happening during the workshop. It wasn't just me presenting to a group of people. So
Yeah.
those are always my favorite,
Yeah.
right? I love it when someone will talk to me about it in real time and we get to workshop those things together. So we got to talk a lot about calibration options for a limited number of sensors. We got to talk a lot about editing report layouts. So I think, with those workshops, since we always split our bigger group in half, are always they always lead to some really interesting conversations with that smaller group of people
Sure.
that ends up being there.
Yeah, I think that's a really neat part about our event in general is, we do try to make it so that everybody, they don't necessarily get like physical hands-on. In some cases, it has happened in the past,
Hmm.
but it's just more of an even more intimate viewing of, how to use the technology for a particular purpose, and it's kind of this open discussion where yes, you're kind of presenting and leading them through a process, but then it's very, conversational.
Hmm.
And so that was even the case with, our speakers workshops that they were leading too, where they were showcasing, okay, here's kind of how I approach this measurement, and here's the setup that we do, and this is usually what we're looking at, and so they're kind of going through more of the real time pieces of
Yeah.
it. But then they're able to open that up to the rest of the group and say, like, what do you think? You're also a clinician, or an educator, or you're working in this industry. Like, how would you approach this? And then we get to kind of adjust and try things out on the fly.
Hmm.
And that can be anything from, just setting up random biofeedback, or, adjusting the report to show this signal versus that signal. And
Yeah.
so, kind of showcasing the capabilities of the software and the hardware to be adaptable in the moment, while also kind of following this structure that, of course, the speaker is intending to show as, an example of their process and what they do from a measurement standpoint.
Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned this a few times, but for me, it's all about just boiling the technology and the software down to something that feels accessible for our users.
Hmm.
And so any opportunity we have to do that by answering those questions in real time and showing people how easy it is to just turn on one feature or
Hmm.
make a simple layout element edit in a report, is always really cool. And you always have those people in the crowd that go like, "Oh man, I didn't know you could do that."
Yeah.
So that's always, really exciting to see, and makes our lives easier in communicating that information moving forward.
Yeah, totally.
Because I always come away with ideas too on like, oh man, so many people had questions on this. Maybe I should create some educational article about this topic as
Right.
well. So, I mean, it's just lots of useful information there.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth for sure.
Yeah.
And then your lecture showcased a new development from us with the translation toolbox,
Hmm.
which I thought was awesome. And from my perspective, got the wheels turning for a lot of people about kind of some possibilities and some different areas that they could maybe start to utilize that,
That was the
if
goal.
they're users of the IMU system. So that was neat, just to be able to present that. It's been out for a few months, but it didn't seem like a lot of people really had a chance to kind of get their hands on it, or use it in practice. And so I think you did a great job of kind of showing what are the options, how might you apply this, what are some examples that you could even use this for, and then kind of turning it back on them and saying, okay, like, now that you've seen kind of what the capabilities are, let's hear some ideas about maybe where you could see this be applicable. And
Yeah.
more importantly, when you go back to, your home, or your clinic, get the system out and try something, get an idea for what you would want, like, an outcome measure to be using this tool set, and let us know, because we want to be able to continue the development around this tool to actually deliver, real utility to people, instead of it just being kind of an advanced, feature set.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I do think that lecture went really
Yeah.
well, but yeah, I love an opportunity to pop quiz everyone. So
Yeah, you did have
um
a couple pop quizzes
yeah,
there. Yeah,
I have
that's
to
right.
make sure people
Paying
know that
attention.
I know that they're
Yeah.
paying attention.
Yeah.
But I think my main goal, as we kind of discussed in the lead up, was to see if we can get some interesting input or feedback immediately after getting those
Sure.
wheels turning. Because it's so difficult for any product developer to throw something out there and then actually get feedback for it.
Yeah.
Like you got to try so many different methods. You got to send out surveys. You've got to, just listen and take notes. But anytime that you can ask for feedback in person after presenting on how to use those tools,
Right.
is always a really cool opportunity. And I think we came away with some interesting ideas. And I think our users came away with some interesting ideas. So
Hmm.
hopefully they go home and try it and let us know how it went.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the call. That's the call to action
Yeah.
for those of you listening.
Yes. Go try the translation toolbox. I think it's really cool.
Um, so of course, a big aspect of the event is always the community and the networking. did you have any I mean it's easy to kind of forget how tight knit this community actually is,
Yeah.
especially domestically, right? Obviously we have users worldwide, but
Hmm.
typically this event is kind of more focused on our users in the United States, or North America, I guess. Um, any people you got to reconnect with that you're excited about, or met some new faces?
I definitely met a lot of new faces.
Yeah.
We had several new users that were at the event that had literally just gotten their equipment and
Yeah.
hadn't touched it yet. So
And I
that
guess you get to
was,
work with everybody pretty directly, from a
yeah.
support standpoint. So it's probably
So
cool
that's
to,
it was
yeah.
weird for me to see like I don't know who that person is. So
Yeah.
I was surprised to see a lot of people that I didn't know. But
Yeah.
for me, because I work with so many of our users directly in some capacity over Zoom meetings, email, helping them develop applications or even just with support, like it's always so cool to see them in person.
Sure.
It's an entirely different interaction. But I don't know about reconnecting. I mean, obviously we have our core group of like 4 or 5 people that are always there every year. It's
Yeah.
always lovely to see them.
Yeah.
But I was really happy that a few newer users who had only been working with the equipment for a few months came
Hmm.
and got something out of it
Yeah. That's
because
huge.
it's hard to, I wouldn't say like, how do I frame this? It can be a lot to work with technology when it's not something you've done before.
Mhm.
And it can be challenging on my side as someone who's trying to train someone, educate them on how to use that equipment, just being me to communicate all those ideas. When at the end of the day, we're the product manufacturer. Like we can tell people how to use the equipment and give them some ideas and help bring their ideas to life. But that aspect that I think the user meeting provides that, we can't provide is that networking.
Yeah.
And, those people that maybe struggle to really see the light at the end of the tunnel got to talk with everyone else about what they did. And I think that was really special to see for sure.
Yeah, and even we've got some veterans, let's
Yeah.
call, right? People that are have been using the equipment for a decade plus,
Hmm.
and then like you said, some folks that just got it a few months ago, and so for them to be able to share those experiences and kind of remind them like, yeah, there's you're going through it right now in terms of kind of getting everything set up and getting your processes in place and protocols down, but here's I'm a in proof example of
Yeah.
you're sticking to it, and I've developed an entire business model around using this technology and others to kind of drive my clinical decision making or my interactions with clients, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that's always really cool. I think for me, and I wasn't at the meeting last year, and so it was really cool just to be able to kind of get back in touch with
Yeah, for
everybody,
sure.
and
It's like, oh man, Zach is back.
yeah. And so that was fun, and yeah, getting to see, again, just kind of this more reunion aspect in some cases for some of the people that have been coming for several years now, and
Hmm.
I've gotten to know very well. And so that was a lot of fun, and then it's always great to get to see some new faces too, and learn more about what they do and what their businesses are and which pieces of equipment they have, and to be honest, that's also those are the people that I try to rely on a little bit more for some of that initial feedback, because
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
like we want the software and the hardware to be usable right away.
Yeah.
And so, those people that are very new to it offer a lot of great information and great feedback that can kind of help bridge the gap, for the next group of new users. Whereas, maybe the older users have they've kind of stuck with us and, gone through various iterations of things and, formats and whatnot. And so they have great feedback as well as kind of like, well, what's next? But as far as like user experience is concerned, it's sometimes limited just based off of the history.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's like those individuals sometimes just develop their habits and,
exactly. Yeah, you just
don't
kind of don't know what you don't know, sort of a
yeah,
thing.
don't
Yeah.
have anything else new to share because they're like, well, this is just how I've done this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's great. It's such a cool group of people, and for sure always fun to get to spend time with them. And um we always have a nice time at our social event that we host, and good food, and lots of laughs. And
Yeah, opportunity to talk to people in a more
exactly.
casual
Yeah,
setting. And users to talk to each other in a more casual setting. That's
correct.
where a lot of those like how do you make it work with your business
Right.
conversations come up. So, which I think is really key for a lot of our users who, are struggling to really figure out what their business model looks like.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, the collaboration sort of gets solidified in
Mm-hmm.
those moments, in kind of the quote unquote after hours.
Yeah.
Uh whereas, in the meeting, yeah, you're kind of fresh on some of the more technical pieces, and
Mm-hmm.
you're getting to hear ideas exchanged and things like that. But, the relationships are formed when you're having more of those casual conversations during the coffee breaks, or, at the social event. So
Yeah,
I think that's an important aspect of our event, that we really try to make fun and enjoyable for everybody.
for sure.
So I guess, kind of as we're drawing to a close here, and wrapping this thing up, what were some big takeaways about maybe where biomechanics and overall human movement measurement are heading, based off of some of the things that you saw with the speakers, or any of the conversations that you might have had with the users? Any
Ah.
any big areas that are popping up that you're like, oh, that could be exciting for us to take advantage of?
Hmm. We definitely had a few interesting comments on the translation toolbox and balance testing.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things that it's good to know we're going in the right direction.
Sure. It's more
Um,
outcome focused versus just pure measurement focused.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so having that knowledge that, outcomes are important, but also seeing that people are still very interested in having their hands on all of the data.
Yeah.
That's not changing. And that's something that I think is really important to highlight, and a big takeaway for me, because that's what we're all about here. Like,
Mhm.
we're all about providing all of the information possible while also having easy ways to summarize the information
Right.
into these key points or parameters. But there are so many different other companies and different ways of thinking that are popping up now that focus on just like, hey, look, you can get this done. You can get this done easily. You can get results. But while the results are important, how you get there and what that data actually says is still super, super important. And I think all of our users agree with that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that's new information, but it's good to see that that's not going away, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a little bit of the buzzwords, going about in terms of AI, and,
Yeah.
things like that, where it's sort of doing the work for you, so to speak. But
Oh, we weren't going to
um,
mention AI in every
no,
podcast.
I had to, as I got my reminder that just popped up. Um, but I think that we have a unique group of people that use our technology, and they're certainly the ones that want the objectivity, and they want the reliability that we're able to deliver with our technology. But I think the where we definitely stand out with them is, like you said, by still providing the outcome measures, the reduction of that, those time series data into things that can be tracked, can be looked at a glance, can
Yeah.
be easily communicated to the clients or the patients themselves. And so it's been cool, because that's sort of what we've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's the accessibility of kind of movement analysis, and how data applies to movement and all these different capacities. It's being it's being accelerated based off of these, maybe easier to use tools that are less expensive and, maybe derived off of, a singular technology or something like that.
Mhm.
But it's creating a wave of people that are then getting exposure and then kind of working their way backwards to being like, I think
Yeah.
there's more to this.
Yes.
And so while, maybe the pulse of the biomechanics world is looking at how do we deliver these outcome measures, faster, easier, and make them more reliable. Um, I think that people are not so interested in just having it all be done for them automatically. They
Yeah.
want a little
They
bit more
still want their
visibility.
hands on
Yeah, they want
the
the control.
information.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, I think that's good to see
Yeah.
because it's so easy to get bogged down with like this feedback and that feedback and
Hmm.
people that think the technology is very complicated, but it's one of those things where you gotta just keep on the course
Yeah.
and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, but and having all of our users there and able to provide feedback and definitely a lot of the more casual conversations where some of those little feedback nuggets just kind of come out is kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that is, I think that's a solid review of the weekend, and you know, we obviously are moving on to the next one, and
Yep.
we joke around here that we get like a couple weeks off, and then we have to immediately start thinking about what we're gonna be doing
Yeah.
for the next year.
Yep.
So we're in that space right now, but of course, it's important for us to get back to the drawing table here soon and continue to make this event, something exciting and engaging for our users and hopefully get more people to continue to come out year in and year out.
Yeah.
um
And I think, and hopefully this conversation for anyone listening serves as, you know, maybe you're a user and you have been thinking about coming to the user group meeting, but
yeah.
haven't decided whether to go. Or maybe you don't use our technology at all and you're just here to listen to us talk.
Yeah.
But hopefully it was helpful to at least provide a little bit more insight as to what this event is and, what kinds of activities and workshops we have ready.
Yeah, definitely. And so, huge shout out to all of our attendees and of course our wonderful presenters. And we had some partners there too.
Mm-hmm.
Vertex showed up and then, special shout out to our sales team for being the guinea pigs for all of the workshops as well.
Couple of those
A couple of
guys
those
had a
guys.
bad time getting
Yeah.
critiqued with their
Yeah.
running form, but
Yeah.
they were troopers.
Yeah, they're good sports about it. But um, yeah, I'd say, we obviously are going to be continuing to put out content and about the user meeting, recaps and, visuals about what was going on this past year. Maybe we'll turn a couple of these into a webinar or two.
Yeah,
That's always a fun thing to do. But yeah, so stay in touch, follow us online, Noraxon USA and all your favorite platforms, and we'll see you next time.
that's right.